Today I came downstairs and I opened the fridge. In the fridge was a bar of chocolate, dark orange, that I hadn't bought, and alongside it was a Diet Coke in cherry flavour. I take it out of the fridge, presuming that it's mine, and my mum walks in and she says, "Oh, you saw the drink that I got you." I think to myself, "Oh, that's so lovely. Thank you so much for getting me this drink, Mum." And she said, "Yeah, I was thinking between getting you the fizzy drink or a fruit smoothie." And I said, "Oh, well, what made you cut me off? It just looked like you needed energy, so I wanted to get you the fizzy drink." And I said, "Oh," I was looking for compliments. I said, "Do you think I look tired?" Hoping she'd be like, "No, of course you don't. You don't look tired." And she said, "Yeah, no, you really do. You look tired and you look gaunt." Welcome back to Self-Interrupted, guys, with Kit Costello. Yes, the rumours are true. I'm tired, gaunt, and I am Kit Costello. Today, we are talking about performing through sadness, something that I believe a lot of us tend to do. The past few months for me have been really tough, and frankly, I couldn't continue this season without talking about them. So I'm going to be talking about the sadness that I've encountered, how I dealt with the sadness, how I'm dealing with the sadness, and the light at the end of the tunnel that I'm seeing. We're going to be talking about that. Of course, we're going to be doing a catch-up of the week. And we're also going to be doing an interrupt me of the week, which is when I'm an agony aunt to one of you. You send in your submissions. I give advice on them. Simple. Without further ado, let's get into the catch-up of the week. First of all, rate the podcast 5 stars. I hate to do it, but sometimes you've really just got to put yourself first. Rate the podcast 5 stars if you haven't already on Spotify. And please leave a written review on Apple Podcasts if you listen over there. It would really help me out. And I know that you guys probably hear this from every podcaster, but every podcaster has a massive production company behind them. It's just me, this microphone, the recorder, the camera, and my editing software. I do this all by myself. So please help me out and leave a review. It really does help out. We are currently charting in multiple countries right now. I believe we're charting in Australia, the UK, France, and Canada, and Brazil. So thank you so much to those countries. It's appreciated. Major announcements. Okay, first of all, I feel like a Build-A-Bear mascot. I recently saw a image of someone that worked at Build-A-Bear dressing up as one of the teddy bears in a mascot costume, but they were taking a bathroom break, and the paws that they had on their hands, they had to take off the paw gloves to wash their hands, and they were taking a mirror selfie with the mascot costume on. And I couldn't help but feel as though the amount of dissociation that I'm currently going through in my life, I related to the image. And then I went on a deep dive search of Build-A-Bear mascots and people that were just like in the back room with, their Build-A-Bear mascot head off, and it's a human head, but they have the Build-A-Bear body on. And I couldn't help but just relate. Next major announcement, I read a book. Was it a novella? Sure. Was it less than 100 pages? Of course. But did I sit down and read it all at once? Yes. And I think that is worth celebrating. Next major announcement is that I got a brick for my phone. A brick is a device that you tap in and out of your phone so it stops you going on social media. It basically locks your social media apps or any apps that you want it to lock, and you can't go on them for a certain amount of time. And it kind of has changed my life, I will say, because I've just been a bit more present in my life. I've been journaling. I was just about to lie and be like, I've been journaling so much. I've kind of been off my journaling game because I've been doing so many embarrassing things in my life recently that I don't want to tell my journal. Like, no, if you guys knew what has been going on, it's bad when your friends have to kind of sit you down and be like, Kit, no, like what you're saying is not funny. Like, you need to stop. I haven't been journaling. I've had to kind of refrain from that because I want to get my life a little bit more on track before I tell her. But the stuff that I'm just like, this isn't even like interesting. The stuff that I'm just like, no. Because sometimes I read back my journals and I'm like, why did you write about this? Sometimes you can talk about it with your friends. And I feel as though I've been doing that more recently, so I haven't been needing to journal as much. So I would say that's a net win, right? It's a net positive. Up next, I've been designing merch. Merch drop coming soon. Hopefully within the next, I'd say like month and a half, there should be merch available for purchase. I'm thinking for now, like t-shirt, hoodie, and poster. That's the vibe. But if you want anything else, do let me know. And final major announcement in the catch up of the week are fried eggs. I have currently been on my fried egg kick. I'm talking like hard yolk though. I don't want the runny yolk because it's actually going to piss me off a little bit because now I'm having to scoop up the yolk from my plate. I would rather just have like almost burnt fried eggs completely cooked through. And I just love that just in the morning. And then just like a banana and a tangerine, maybe with dark chocolate as well, with a cup of tea. There's currently a really noisy train going past. So if you can hear that, I believe it's a freight train. We have those going through the farm. And sometimes I do feel as though I'm in like an up and coming indie film. You know, it's like one sentence and then like some really cool indie music starts playing and it's about the coming of age of like a queer teenager in a religious town. Wait, that's literally my life. Those are the major announcements. Moving on to the actual catch up of the week. Okay, so I'll start off on Tuesday last week where I found myself in a cafe once again editing the podcast. Now, if you listened to last week's episode, I talked about how I usually go to this certain cafe to edit or work, and there happens to be a barista there who's handsome. And last week I went, he wasn't there, but someone even more handsome was there. Turns out I went again, and the person that I thought was handsome... Wait, now I'm getting confused. There's so many handsome people. Basically, the last two handsome people weren't there, but there was another handsome guy. They are 3 for 3. This hot barista factory, truly. And once again, I ordered my mango juice and my brownie. And I don't want to hear anything about it because I know the combination sounds weird, but once you do have it, it is nice. Okay. So I'd learned from previous experience. I was sitting there and I was thinking, you know what? I've got this. I can, I can flirt with this barista a little bit. You know, we're young, we're hot, we're sexy. We can do this. And everything was going so well. And then this freak turns up. Go, oh my God, this freak. So I'm kind of making eyes with the barista and we're kind of like, you know, there's a little bit of flirting going on. And then in walks a girl. I don't even know how to describe, but just instantly terrible vibes from this man. He comes in and orders some type of drink and then starts to tap dance. I don't even know. Starts tap dancing on the floor. I'm already pissed off. Mind you, I'm editing. I have a deadline to meet. You're tap dancing on the floor in a cafe where I'm trying to flirt with the barista. Now everyone's mad. Mind you, the cafe's empty. It's me and some like, I would say somewhat middle-aged businessman sitting next to me. And we're both looking up and then we look at each other when we get back to work because the girls are working, famously. Takes his drink, goes and sits at the table next to the toilets. Ugh, sure. And, you know, we continue working. I continue making eyes at Hot Barista. I'm drinking my mango juice. I'm eating my brownie. And from the corner of the room, I just start hearing profanities being muttered under breath. Almost as if someone's on a phone call that they don't want to be on and they're mad and they're frustrated at the person on the other end of the line. And I look around, the person makes direct eye contact with me. I swoop my head around so quickly. I said, not today. Not today. The people in this part of London, you don't know what they're going to do. So I kept to myself. I locked in on the edit. I had my earphones in and I said, no. Focus on the mango juice and the brownie at hand. Can't even be looking up at the hot barista because God knows. It just wasn't the time. It got progressively worse with this person that was sitting by the bathroom. He starts swearing out loud and still tapping his feet while sitting down. It gets to the point where I'm now scared for my safety. So I literally have to down my mango juice, eat my brownie, pack up mid-edit, and I smile to the hot barista. He knows why I'm leaving. Everyone in this room knows why I'm leaving. I left, and then the hot barista was just stuck with this person in the corner of the room, shouting profanities and tap dancing. Anyway, I found myself walking to another cafe, and the first cafe I went to was the Hot Barista Factory. This cafe I went to was the Hot Consumer Factory because everyone there that was buying a product was gorgeous. I step in. You know what? I was going to say I didn't feel like I belonged because I feel so gross. And I felt hot. I felt hot and I was like, yes. I was in my recently purchased Stella McCartney jacket from Vinted. Got it for a steal. It was £70. So I sit down, I get my edit done. There's a guy sitting next to me and it's so classic creative in London. He was producing a song while sitting next to me. And it's at times like that where you're like, okay, sure. I'm editing a podcast. you're producing next to me. We both have jobs, but it's giving jobless. And I could see him looking around at one point. He was looking for the Wi-Fi password. And without him even having to ask, he looked to me and I just had my phone out ready, showing him the password. I felt like a Samaritan. I felt like a good Samaritan. And he called me a legend. He said, ugh, legend. And I was like, exactly. After 4 hours of staring at my screen because I was editing, I looked up and I felt stars in my eyes. I said, Jesus, I need to eat. Instead of walking up to the I suppose the counter and staring at the menu, I go up, I take a picture and I sit back down because I was like, I'm way too awkward to be standing while someone's looking at me and I'm trying to decide what to order. So I take a picture of it. The person behind the counter's confused. I sit back down and I'm looking through the options and go, it was a mess. I don't know what was happening. So I ended up ordering a kimchi wrap. Sure. Which, sounds quite nice. It was either a kimchi toasty or a kimchi wrap. And I thought a kimchi wrap sounds interesting. I'm intrigued. So I order it, I pay for it, and I'm sitting down and I'm expecting, like an easy thing to eat. It comes out, it's packed. In this wrap, it's kimchi, hummus, mature cheddar, and a bunch of chopped salad. The wrap is sitting in a puddle of its own juice. I said, girl, I'm sitting next to someone that's gorgeous and he's producing and he's been looking at my screen, which is obviously me, for 4 hours. He's probably thinking, oh my God, this person's so cool, like so interesting, maybe a little bit narcissistic and obsessed. Like she's been staring at herself for 4.5 hours editing. And now I'm sitting here eating this like sloppy jalopy wrap in front of him. That's, by the way, fucking reeks. Like, kimchi, hummus, and mature cheddar cheese at the gig. Like, I'm trying to so the food comes and of course I'm just like picking at the salad and I'm kind of like picking at the salad, drop a piece on the floor, classic. So then I'm like getting up, I'm on a stool and I get up awkwardly and I pick it up off the floor because I don't litter. And then I'm like, God, I'm gonna have to like get into this. I pick it up, it's dripping. I feel the guy next to me just like looking at me. He probably wasn't, maybe he wasn't, but I felt it. And then I start taking bites and I will say it was pretty good. It was yummy. It was a bunch of weird flavors. Hummus and kimchi and then salad that I think was dressed. Like it was dressed salad. It was just it was a bit wet, but it filled me up enough because I was going to Emma's afterwards. I text Emma, I said, hey, you're around, love to see you. And she said, yes, I would love to sit and catch up, not feeling so great today. And I said, you know what? I'm going to bring you some chocolate and we're going to sit and we're going to talk. I go into, okay, hold your hands out. Put your hand in mine and breathe in. Breathing in, breathing out. What do you guys know about Harvest? Do you guys know about Harvest? Harvest is like, I would say somewhat of like a bougie corner shop in London. It's kind of akin to like a Whole Foods, but on a smaller scale, but more expensive somehow. I go into a Harvest. Let me tell you my safe space. I live for a Harvest. I know the workers in that Harvest. They know me. Not by name, but I get the vibe that they know me. I get my chocolate. I bring it to Emma and she's like, I'm going through it. I'd love to talk. And I said, you know what we're going to do? We're going to go into your living room. We're going to get some tea. We're going to eat this chocolate, Tony's Chocolonely chocolate in a Ben & Jerry's brownie flavor. Oh my God. Ate the whole thing. And we're going to have a Disney film on in the background, but silent, just for the vibes. And that's what we did. Emma then made some food. She said, kid, do you want any food? And I said, no, I'm so full from that kimchi wrap. Ended up eating it off her plate. Love. I had a couple bites of that. Then I got on the train. I love getting the train back from Emma's to the farm. I do kind of, I have a couple of, I do have a couple of like fantasizations. I bump into a couple of people that like maybe are from my past, because so many people live around that area. It really is just, it's the Wild West. You never know who you're going to bump into in London. And it's always the roguest person. You never bump into the person that you want to bump into when you look hot. Let's have that conversation, because now I'm pissed off. I bumped into people. Oh my God, there was a time when I was dating someone and we like had this like messy ending. It was really bad. And I was around where Emma is and I was in a vintage shop and I was, I was doing a little bit of shopping in this vintage shop. In walks this guy that I had ended things with, or he had ended things with me, and his cousin, oh my God, who I met his entire family. Oh, I was on a date with this boy, and we were a few months into dating, and and we go to the pub one day. Who's sitting at the longest? In the pub you have like the longest table at the back, reserved for families, basically. Like, I'm talking long distance families having a reunion. We walk in thinking it's the two of us. We're going to be kissing in the pub garden, etc. that night. It's evening. I'm staying at his that night. This is the first stage of the staying at the soon-to-be boyfriend's house. Like, you're going to make out at the pub. You're going to go back to his. You're going to sleep over, etc. We turn up to the pub. Mind you, I bought his pint, pissed off. Story for a different day. And we walk into the pub garden and we're like holding hands, we're flirting. Instantly drops my hand, recognizes his entire family's there, and I sit with his entire family. Go. Ooh, the trenches. Ooh, the trenches. And I was sitting with his cousin, and me and his cousin were like trying to get on. Anyway, I bumped into him and his cousin in a vintage shop, and I was having to like skirt my way around this vintage shop so that I didn't bump into them, which is so immature and jarring. But sometimes in that situation, you have just woken up at your best friend's house and you've popped to the vintage shop just to go and see if they have a jacket because it's too cold, and you're looking a mess. And then in walks your ex and his cousin, and you're just thinking, not right now. Not right now. That's the catch up of the week. That's what's been going on. Nothing too crazy. I will say, actually, it's currently Tuesday evening as I record this, and I am actually having to stay up a lot of the night tonight to edit this, to put it out. I was meant to record this yesterday. I'll save the stories for a different episode, but the things that transpired yesterday evening while I was about to record an episode of this podcast, you guys don't even want to know. Back to back, it felt as though I was doing an obstacle course in the mud, and every crawl I took, someone kicked me in the face. Like, it was just one thing after another yesterday evening, and I couldn't believe it. And we'll talk about that in a future episode we'll be talking about that. But now let's get into the topic of the week, which is performing through sadness. Performing through the sadness. Pretty sad episode title. And honestly, I've had a hard few months, and I felt as though this episode, I'll be honest, I've been trying to record it now a couple of times, and I find myself stopping because I'm questioning whether it's maybe a bit heavy. I don't think it's terribly heavy. I think, honestly, a lot of us are going through hard stuff in life, and sometimes it's quite nice to hear about what someone else is going through because it humanizes them a lot more, specifically on social media, because I do believe that there's such a performance to social media. And though the past few months have been really tough for me, I think I've been posting on social media as if I'm doing really well. I'm promoting a new season of the podcast. There are sexy photos of me online. Classic. I'm posting a little sexy selfie here and there. Some might even call it a thirst trap. Little did you know I was depressed. Right. And you know what? You can never judge someone through social media because you don't know what they're going through. The past few months for me have been really tough. I'm going to be real. Beginning of this year, I felt amazing. I had just come off last year going through my first heartbreak, and then it was into Christmas where you kind of just are with your family and you're somewhat dissociating from real life because you're in this bubble of Christmas, food, family. And January came and I thought to myself, you know what? This is going to be my year. Everything's aligning. Why wouldn't it be my year? I start committing to myself and to this idea that I'm going to really invest in myself. And this year, more than anything, I'm going to validate myself. I'm not going to look for external validation. I'm really going to put the energy into myself, into my work, into my image, and into how I feel. I just wanted to feel good. I wanted to look after myself and look after my body, and that's what I did. I was eating healthily, and by that I don't mean I was just eating salads. I mean I was eating consistently. I was eating foods that were just good for me. I was in the modeling industry for a very long time, and I was taught certain things about myself, about eating habits, about my body that were not healthy. And it's taking me a very long time to unlearn those things. And I believe at the beginning of this year, it was a really pivotal moment for me where I was eating foods that I really enjoyed, and consistently I was eating them. I wasn't really thinking about it. I was working out consistently, but because I wanted to, not because I was drilling myself down into the ground and being mad at myself when I didn't work out. I just worked out because it made me feel good. I was working out to like the best pop music. I was looking in this room, actually just in front of me where this table is currently sitting. I had a yoga mat on the floor. I was doing my Pilates. I had the lady on mute and I had Zara Larsson on full volume. I have a mirror just in front of me here. And I was looking sexy. And you know I bought a new Lululemon set. You know I did. Of course I did. Baby, I had the little tank top that has the boob inserts because God knows I need them. So I had A cup tits for the first time and I was looking in the mirror and I said, exactly. I started getting like abs. I wasn't even working for abs, but I just started getting them because I was eating healthily and I was working out. I was dating people, but not for their validation, because I actually wanted to spend time with them. I was seeing my friends a lot. I was working on the new season of the podcast. My life was really looking up. I was in a stage where I had never been before. I was in a frequency that I had never been before, and it felt as though myself and my ideal frequency matched and I was riding it. And I'm sure if you've been in that position, you know what that high feels like. That feeling of wanting to wake up every day. That feeling of knowing that you're constantly improving and that, frankly, you're in control and everything is just working out. Nothing can bring you down because you know that you're on the right frequency and you're naturally elevating. So it gets to the end of February and I wake up with pain in my body. And it's nothing serious, but I have this health issue that I believe has been caused by potential stress, by potential anxiety, possibly by overworking my body without really knowing it. It was an instant hit in the face. And I know I've said that and it's like, oh my God, this is so jarring. This has come out of nowhere. I've done that intentionally because that's how I felt. Imagine I wake up, I'm thinking, yeah, it's Pilates. It's time for Tate McRae. It's time for my A-cup tits in the Lululemon sports bra. But all of a sudden, I'm in pain and I can't do that. It felt as though the ice that I was standing on broke and I fell into like this freezing river. And I was struggling to move. I was struggling to get out. You know, you have injuries and you think that you're going to get over them. And a week passed and nothing changed. Another week passed and now I'm out of routine. Another week passes and I'm feeling like the version of myself during Christmas where I had just recently been broken up with and I felt a bit out of control and I wasn't in a routine at all. And I felt kind of crap about myself. I didn't feel confident in my body. I was looking for external validation. Only 3 weeks had passed and I'd already gone back to that version of myself. Now I'm sitting here and I feel worse because I've known what it's like to be at this highest point, this highest frequency. I lived it. This dream version of my life. Everything in work was going well. My personal life was going well. Romantically, it was going well. All of a sudden, it all stripped from me and I felt even lower than I have ever felt because I knew what it felt like to be in a great place in my life finally. And it felt like I was looking up at this version of myself that was like the pinnacle of me. And it all of a sudden just felt like a dream. I didn't feel as though that person was real. And in that moment, I remember thinking, oh, I knew it was too good to be true. As soon as I thought that, the depressing tendencies hit me. And I say depressing tendencies because I know people with depression and I don't use that term lightly. And sometimes I just feel as though like my situation isn't bad enough to say that I was depressed. But frankly, I was and have been pretty sad and therefore I have been depressed. these past few months, it's been really tough for me to fall from such heights and to fall from such grace. I felt like Icarus. Like, it's been a really tough few months dealing with that. The situation hasn't resolved, you know. I've been going and trying to find out what's going on, but, you know, test results come back and it's saying, like, no, you're fine. Maybe it's stress, maybe it's stress induced, like we can try and do other things. After a while, you just start to lose hope. And I think what I've been dealing with for the past few months is that lack of hope. And it was really hard for me in the beginning because I didn't know what was going on. It was all very new to me. This, you know, this health condition and this pain, that it started manifesting into really bad anxiety and panic attacks. And I'm laying the foundation for this episode to kind of let you know what I've been going through so that you understand the performance that in a lot of ways I've been putting on, whether that's on this podcast or whether that's on social media, because I think that there's so much beauty in humanizing yourself on social media. You know, if you allow yourself to do that, you know, when it comes to my mental health, I always want to share because I think that I'm very privileged and I'm very lucky that I have friends that go through this and I have family members that understand it. And if they don't, they want to. But there may be some of you that don't have friends that go through this. And maybe you do feel like you're alone. And I want you to know that you're not alone in feeling like crap, because sometimes you do just feel like crap. And this was a certain point in my life where I was feeling awful. I was having panic attacks every day. It was really, really tough for me. I would only get panic attacks at night because I think sometimes at night you get, you know, your senses kind of become overly sensitive, I suppose. And I think it's the same with kind of like anything, you know, at night you start thinking about people and things and feelings a lot more than you would during the day because there's a lack of distraction. So I would be laying in bed thinking about this pain and when it was going to go away and if it was going to go away, and I would create a tornado in my mind of emotion and thoughts and feelings, and it would get so much that I would just start having panic attacks. And I hadn't had panic attacks since I was a teenager doing exams. I felt this feeling of how am I back here? You know, I not only am I back at the Christmas period where I felt like I was out of control, now I'm a teenager again and I'm experiencing these mental health issues that I was experiencing when I was a teenager. You know, this was 8 years ago now, and I'm back here. After a couple of weeks, those panic attacks kind of subsided, but there was this mental exhaustion that I felt after the stage of having panic attacks. And it kind of resulted with me just feeling so hopeless and feeling a lot of dread. I think what I felt through this period was the juxtaposition of how I felt in the beginning of the year. The beginning of the year, I felt so hopeful for the future, and it felt as though everything was just lining up for me. And all of a sudden, it was a complete match cut to me in that same bed, but waking up and I'm not going out, I'm not doing Pilates, I'm staying in bed, and I am just almost envious of my past self for being able to do that without even thinking about it. I just found myself blaming myself and really digging into myself and just feeling exhausted and dreadful. And there's been periods this past few months where I just would cry. I found myself going on quite a lot of walks to try and talk my mind through it because I've just been spending so much time alone. There was a period of time where I wasn't going out to see friends because I was just so exhausted by the pain that I knew that I'd like be out and I would just feel so crap, and I didn't want to feel crap in front of my friends. So, you know, I'd kind of just like self-isolate alone in my room and almost self-destruct in a way and self-sabotage those relationships. And it felt as though like, okay, well, it's already bad, so I may as well make it worse. And that really is never the answer. I think there's so much importance in reaching out to your friends. And truthfully, as soon as I started reaching out to my friends and being honest with them is when everything started feeling so much better. It was hard to get to that stage because before then it was me not telling anyone what I was going through. It took me a while to even tell like my parents. I was performing to them at first. I was performing like, oh yeah, no, I'm fine. But equally, I was trying to perform to myself that I was okay. Though I was exhausted and though I was depressed, I was trying to like negate those feelings by trying my best to like give myself a routine and acting like everything was normal, when in reality it wasn't. I was sad and I was upset and I had lost something. I think the first stage of getting over that sadness was accepting it. It was accepting that my life wasn't what it was at the beginning of the year. And I think it's the hardest thing to do because it's fronting it, it's understanding that that's not how it is anymore. And I found that really hard to get my head around because it was a complete twist in my life and it was hard. And I think the reason it was hard is because I kind of blamed myself. I thought, am I at fault here? Am I the reason I have this injury, this health issue? And I think that can go for a lot of things in your life, whether you're going through a breakup, relationship breakups, family issues, etc. Sometimes you blame yourself for things that maybe are out of your control. If you sit with something for a long enough amount of time, you do end up theorizing and you end up driving yourself to a point where you do blame yourself, especially if you're in that kind of state of mind and that mental space where, if you're anything like me, it was just a case of like constantly being self-deprecating, and it was so exhausting. And I'm so lucky that, like I said, I was being honest with my friends eventually. It took me a second, and it does take a second. I do want to emphasize that because I think I was really performing to my friends that I was okay. And though I wasn't seeing them and they'd reach out and be like, hey, I'd love to see you at some point soon, I'd make an excuse or I'd say that I was busy, and eventually they started questioning it. And I think these past few months, though it's been tough and though it's been hard and though I have been very sad and depressed, these past few months I've seen a difference in the way that I express my emotions to my friends drastically. I'm so much more open about the way I speak about emotion and uncomfortable conversations about myself, about my body. The beauty in that is, though you go through tough periods of your life, you always get something out of it. And I know it feels like you don't. And I know sometimes you're going through something, you're thinking, what the fuck am I gaining from this? What is the silver lining? And sometimes it pisses you off because someone's telling you, no, you'll see the silver lining. There'll be something that you learn from this. There'll be a lesson. And you're in it and you're thinking, girl, if you knew my day-to-day routine right now, the way it's me in bed, maybe until 2 p.m., not understanding how to get up, how to make food. The concept of going on a walk and getting fresh air is foreign to me at this point. And you're saying that there's a lesson to be learned? Are you dumb? You just think like, no, there's no lesson to be learned here, but truly there is. And if you haven't found that lesson yet, give yourself time and give yourself grace, because you will find a lesson throughout all of the mud and throughout all of the muck. There's something to be learned in everything, in every situation of your life. And I want you to know that, because though this period of my life has been the hardest period of my life, I have learned the most about myself. And that is why I wanted to make this episode, because I'm so proud of myself these past few months. There have been some really uncomfortable conversations that I've had to have with myself, and there have been some really fronting experiences that I've had to go through. And I have had to get up. I have had to go and see my friends. I've had to go to London for work. And I've had to do it while feeling like crap. There's so much strength that I've understood that I have because I've been doing that. I'm not sitting here saying that, you need to push yourself more. And if you're sad, you need to get out there and go to... No, I'm not saying that, because it took me a second to get to the point where I could even conceptualize the idea of seeing a friend. Once I let that guard down with my friends, it did alleviate some of that, especially with the injury and the health things that I'm going through. My friends were able to kind of communicate that maybe they've gone through something like this. They know some people that have gone through something like this. And it was great. Though it didn't take away that pain, it didn't take away everything that I've been through, it humanized me. And I think it's really important to put yourself out there. When you are down and when you are sad, a lot of the time, personally, I tend to cocoon. I take myself away. I find myself in my bedroom, feeling as though no one's ever going to relate to the things that I'm going through. They're so nuanced. And the truth is, a lot of the time, the things that we're going through aren't actually as specific to us as we may think. Yes, there are certain instances and experiences that are completely singular, but the wider picture of what you're going through may not be. For example, if you're going through a heartbreak in general is not a singular experience. The certain experiences that you had within that heartbreak may be. But if you're talking to a friend, that friend can resonate with you. They can tell you, oh, I've been through a heartbreak, and you can share your experiences. If a friend has also had an injury, they can share their experiences and you can share yours. It's really important to have that kind of common base that you can touch so that you don't feel like you're going insane. Because when you lock yourself away, that's all you do. You confine yourself to your own emotions and they run rampant in your mind until you exhaust yourself. You're running through all your emotions and all these possibilities. And if you're anything like me, you only think the worst. Especially with medical stuff and with health stuff, I really create these storylines in my mind that just are not true. And that's why I was having panic attacks, is because I was creating these ideas of what could be happening. And the time was passing, and what if it's getting worse? And the truth is, it wasn't getting worse, and it is getting better, and I am healing, but it's going to take time. And that's the point I want to make, is that patience is something that I've really had to learn as well. The body, physically and mentally, doesn't heal overnight. It takes a second. And I've really had to remind myself of that, because recovery in any aspect is not linear. You will one day feel great and the next day you will feel crap. And that's a promise, unfortunately. You are not going to feel great every single day and you're not going to feel crap every single day. And that's the silver lining there. Because sometimes when you are in a bout of depression and sadness, you feel like it's never going to get better. And you have this dread. And you're going on a walk, if you're anything like me, you're going on a walk and you're listening to Lifeboat by Ray. And you're thinking, it's just not going to get better. You're crying on the walk. I've cried more this past 3 months than I have ever consistently in my life. And I don't think that's a bad thing. I'm really happy with the fact that I'm someone that's in touch with their emotions. I love that I cry. I'm very proud to cry, because there was a period of my life when I was younger where I was very emotionally stunted. I couldn't cry. I'd be at funerals and I'd be wanting to cry. But now I'm at a point in my life where I'm in touch with my emotions and I understand myself, and I've done the work where maybe it's frustrating, but I cry. It's been really important for me to understand through this process what does make me feel better. And what I've learned throughout this past few months is so much about myself. You know, when you go through a season of sadness, let's call it, it really is just a relationship that strengthens with yourself. And I have really felt that, to be honest. I have felt this kind of new, evolved comfort within myself. You know, when you go through anything in your life that feels kind of never ending and it feels like emotionally jarring, there is a new sense of self that you gain, and there's a new sense of home within yourself that you gain, if that makes sense. You know, when I wasn't telling anyone about what I was going through, I was only telling myself, and though that was causing me panic attacks and sadness and depression, it was an understanding that, like, oh, only I can comfort myself in this moment. I was able to learn lessons of how I comfort myself and reintroducing myself to what brought me comfort when I was younger. And, you know, examples of that were like me going on walks, something as simple as that, you know, going around the farm and going for a walk without my phone. I wasn't on my phone. I wasn't caring about social media. And it's funny, when you go through things like this, you instantly put everything in perspective and you're like, ugh, I don't care about that anymore. I don't care about social media. Like, take it all away from me. I'd rather be happy. And I'd go on these walks and honestly, I would instantly feel better. And I do want to emphasize that, you know, if you're feeling bad, if you're feeling crap, if you're feeling sad, it sounds cliche, but a walk really does help you out. Recently, I've been going on walks with one of my friends, and we go outside, and as soon as that air hits our face, it's almost an instant chemical change in my mind of, oh, okay, actually, no, it's fine. It's almost like a perspective shift. And I've really felt that. Something else that brings me comfort is the idea of cozy time. I'll have like a cozy show on my laptop. I'll have a tea along with a sweet treat. I want something to look forward to. And that cozy time comes at the end of the day because I need to have something to say to myself, okay, at the end of the day, I know I have that cozy time where I can just indulge, get a bit sleepy so that I can fall asleep. I'm not worrying about the end of the night. I'm not worrying that I'm going to have a panic attack. I'm thinking, oh, okay, I'm going to have my cozy time. I'm going to have my chocolate. I'm going to have my tea. And then I'll do my skincare and I'll brush my teeth and I'll go to bed. Performance comes in so many different shapes. And in a lot of ways, those ways of managing that mental health is a performance. Having that cozy time, going on walks, it is a performance in a lot of ways for me personally, because I'd be feeling so crap that I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to go out and go for a pissing walk. Girl, I'm depressed in bed. But sometimes you have to become the version of yourself that does go on that walk and perform like you are, so that when you're out, you're living that. I think sometimes that you can take that performance and run a bit too far with it, because though the performance of going on a walk is for yourself alone, and having cozy time is again just for yourself, I started to push myself a bit too much. And there was a moment, I would say midway through this sad season, where I thought, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm actually going to be happy. And frankly, I'm going to feel sexy. Because if I could feel sexy back in January, I can feel sexy now. Mind you, I'd been in bed all day. And I thought, today's the day that I'm going to feel sexy. I get out of bed. I have a shower. I wash my hair. I style my hair. I put my makeup on. And I'm like, I'm going to take photos. Because mind you, at this point, the validation that I was getting from myself back in January from working out and feeling good about myself, I'd lost. So now I'm trying to seek validation, specifically from guys. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. I was getting ready to take a couple of life-changing selfies, I thought. So I'm there, full glam. I say full glam, it's literally BB cream and lip gloss, but full glam. And I'm in an outfit and I look at myself in the mirror and I'm like, oh, what are you doing? And I get the camera out and I'm trying my best. The thing is, back in January, I could have been doing the same thing. I could have worn the exact same makeup, the same hair, and I could have looked in the mirror and thought, you look so gorgeous. I'm going to take a couple of sexy photos for myself, post them online. At this point in my life, I was performing so hard to act like I was okay within myself that I was like, here we go. And I looked in the mirror and I just hated it. I hated it. I remember I started crying. It's so embarrassing. I was taking selfies. It was so fronting that like, oh my God, I literally am taking these selfies for validation, specifically from men. I should be feeling good about myself. Instead, I'm sitting here crying in makeup, in hair, in an outfit, not feeling sexy. And honestly, it sucks. I want to feel hot. I want to feel sexy. Call me shallow. I'm sorry. I almost said that at a doctor's appointment the other day, and you can call me whatever you want. I almost said to this doctor, all I want is to just feel young, hot, and sexy. And I don't feel that. And I had to refrain from saying that because I thought this is a professional setting. But if I was with my friend, that is what I would be saying. Because frankly, to the point of it, it's like, that is what I want to feel. I think everyone wants to feel that foundationally. And it's not for someone else, it's for yourself. You know, you want to feel hot for yourself. You want to feel sexy. And we are young. So I want to feel young, hot, and sexy. You know, I was looking forward to summer. I was looking forward to, like, you know, wearing a sexy little outfit and feeling good in myself. And I do feel like this past few months has kind of stripped me from that in a way. And I don't feel sexy anymore. And I think that kind of like that I can't perform enough to care about going on dates or being, you know, in a relationship. And I think that's, you know, been tough for me because I do, you know, I do like that side, you know, of my life in a way, that dating, you know, dating and talking to guys and stuff. And I just haven't been feeling sexy recently. And I think it's more of a mental thing. I don't think it's to do with like, you know, how you look, because I don't think I've changed that much since January. It's a testament to what a shift in mental health can really do for you and for the idea you have of yourself. And yeah, it's just been tough. And I think also, like, being someone that's on social media, it's been kind of, I felt like a bit of a hypocrite in a lot of ways, because I've been posting selfies and I've been making videos where I've been acting like I'm fine, but little do people know that it's like mustered all of my courage and all of my energy to do that. It's important for me to talk about that, because from the outside looking in, you would never know. You would never know that I've been going through this season of sadness in my life, because on my Instagram, I've been looking hot, young, and sexy because I've been trying real fucking hard to. You know, I've been putting in the damn effort. And thanks for the likes on that Instagram story. I feel like I've earned them. It got to a period of my life where I just didn't even care. I was just getting it out there because it is my job. And I felt kind of a bit guilty at the beginning of this year, after I kind of had this like injury come to fruition, because, you know, I have really amazing opportunities come my way that I've had to back out of. And it's been really tough to do that. I've kind of reached a point in my career where I've never reached before, where I do feel like I'm at this point the most successful I've been, and I'm really proud of that. I've carved this path for myself that I've always wanted, and now I'm here, and it's like I feel like I can't necessarily enjoy it. I'm definitely getting to a point now where I feel a lot better, and I am going to events now. Famously, I went to a sunglasses event just recently. I felt as though like there was like a part of my life and a part of my career that I was watching happen, especially through people's social media. You know, you watch people and you see these people's lives and you compare yourselves to them. But I think it's important that you don't do that, because much like I was, people perform and you never know what someone's going through, truly. And I hope that listening to this, you kind of understand that even more, because I've kind of definitely understood that from a different perspective, that like just because someone looks like they're okay on social media, it does not mean that they are. I know that's kind of like tale as old as time, but I think once you go through it and once you realize how bad it can be for you while you're still in tandem posting and looking like, you know, hot and sexy in your own way, and you're posting videos and everything's like normal, but you behind the scenes are going through some like tough life moments, you realize that people online, unless you know them personally, it's like doesn't mean anything. You know, these people and their posts, there's no point in comparison. There's no point, because it is all a performance and it's all something that they've created for you to see and for you to consume, and an angle of themselves that they want you to see. And that's more than fine, but digesting that, it's important to understand what you're digesting, and it isn't their reality, and it is a fragment of it. It's not all of it. That's why I've kind of wanted to do this episode, because it's been really important for me to let you know how I am feeling. And equally, I want you to know, now that we're coming to the end of this topic, that I am feeling much better and I am getting better. And, you know, the health things that I'm going through, though it may be slow, they are improving, and that's really good. And I am seeing a light at the end of the tunnel. And there was a really long time where I did not think that I would see that. It was I don't want to sugarcoat it at all. The past few months have been incredibly hard for me. And I'm someone that is pretty optimistic when it comes to myself and my career. But there was a really big portion of the past few months where I just didn't care about anything. It was a complete lack of care, of ambition, of want. I just completely lost my will for doing anything. And it was a really, really hard time. And I'm really proud that I've been able to get through it. But, you know, I got through that by being honest with myself and being honest with my friends. And I want you to know that if you're going through anything like this, or if you ever go through anything like this in the future, that you're not alone, and that though it's tough and though it's hard, it is not the end of anything. Though there's tough days, there are also incredible days. My God, there's so many cool things to look forward to in your life. There are so many better days coming. Really tough to imagine that when you're just in the pits. When you're in the pits, like the last thing you want to think about is, oh, there's a good thing coming up maybe in the future. God, everything just feels like, who cares? Eventually, you do start seeing little sparks. You start seeing sparks of hope. You start caring a bit more. You start laughing genuinely at the jokes that your friends are saying, and you're not putting on a performance and acting like you care. You genuinely care. And you care about what your friends are saying, and you care about the advice that they're giving you. And all of a sudden it starts soaking in. And then you start feeling like yourself again. And I'm at that point now where I'm starting to feel like myself again. And doing this episode has kind of allowed me to start this season off on an honest footing that I'm not my old self, and frankly I'm never going to be that version of myself again, and that's okay. And I talk about the fact that at the beginning of this year I was strong and that I was this ultimate version of myself, and I put myself on such a pedestal. But the truth is, the fact that I've been able to come through what I was going through the past few months, I am much stronger than I was in January and February, though I may not feel like it mentally 100%, and though I may not have the same routines as that person back in January and February. Oh my God. Sincere moment, and the set's falling apart. Jesus Christ, that freaked me out, bitch. I'm so much stronger than that version of myself back in January and February. And it's not even out of, comparison and I prefer the version of myself now. It's an understanding that me going through what I have been through these past few months ultimately makes me stronger. And I'm not doing the same things. I don't have the same schedule. I don't have the same routine. But that doesn't matter. Foundationally, I have matured. Foundationally, I have grown. Foundationally, I am stronger. And that's something that I can not learn through a Pilates video that I do every day on YouTube. That's not something that I can learn by just going on walks. That's something that you learn by going through things, by living life. It is bleak, but sometimes the sadness is part of life, and it's something that you need to go through. It's not something that you can get around. And sometimes there are things that you can kind of avoid. There are people that you can avoid. But sometimes when it's to do with you, and it is you being fronted by yourself, you have got to just go through it. And I've had to go through it this past few months, and I have got past it. And if I can, truly you can too. So if you're going through it, I need you to know that you can get through this, and that it is a stage of your life, and it is a phase of your life. And that one day you will be able to give your friends and your family the advice that you would have needed when you were going through what they are currently going through. I think about that all the time. Experiences that you go through in life, you go through them to give advice to the people that will need it in the future. And that's why I'm doing this episode again. I've been through the experiences and I want to share what I've learned with you guys. I believe that's the topic of the week. I hope it's been inspiring and not too sad. And I hope that you can appreciate my honesty. And I hope that you've been able to take away something from this topic and this episode. The Interrupt Me of the Week reads, I find myself getting attached to people easily, and I can't help it, and at the end I find myself alone and ghosted. I have not been like this, but a recent situationship altered my whole life and attachment, and I cannot help but get attached so easily. I have found myself in this position before. I used to be someone that was very attached to people, and I really relied on their validation. And it was something that I craved. And if I didn't have it, I didn't feel good enough. And I didn't feel as though they were interested in me. And I think the truth is, you have to validate yourself. What I've learned through dating is that when you go into dating someone and you feel confident and you feel self-assured, you tend to not crave their validation as much. I think when you go into it and you're craving their validation, I think there's an insecurity within you. That's how I felt previously, because there have been periods of my life where I just haven't been feeling good, and I've kind of relied on dates and external validation to make me feel better about myself. Whereas when I've been confident and when I've been feeling good, I have been treated in the way that you have been treated, which is being ghosted. And I didn't really feel all that much. I understood that I have worth and that it's more than being ghosted. So I would say to you to really look inwards and to really work on yourself rather than focusing on these people that don't treat you well. It's hard to come out of the routine of getting attached to people, but you can, because I have. I used to be very, very attached to people and I found it very hard, but I think it really is a case of self improvement and self love and self acceptance that allows you to detach from the idea of validation from people, which ultimately is why you're attaching to that person, is because you crave validation from them. But just know that, frankly, the beginning stages of dating someone, their validation doesn't really mean all that much. A lot of the time, it can be quite empty. I think the more you get to know someone, the more that validation means. And it's not just them calling you pretty because you've just started dating, it's them really complimenting you and your personality. And it means something more than just small, insignificant pieces of validation. So that's the advice that I would give to that specific Interrupt Me. The recommendations of the week, I have 3 songs. Freight Train by August James, Hell on Me by Casey Musgraves, and previously mentioned within this episode, Lifeboat by Ray. I love these songs. Those are the recommendations of the week. Hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, please make sure to rate and review the episode. You can follow the podcast on Instagram and on TikTok at selfinterruptedpod. You can also follow me personally at kit.costello on Instagram and on TikTok. But other than that, I'm sending you so much love. As always, Kit.